hopefully you can see that okay. So it says breakfast for brands. And today we are talking all about target audiences. Now, this is the audience, the people that you want your marketing message to connect with. It's worth knowing that not everyone is your customer. And that's absolutely fine. You know, we all have different buying preferences. We all have different brands and things we like, you know, whether that's, you know, food, drink, clothing, experiences we like to go on. Everyone has differences, so it's absolutely fine that not everyone is your customer, but you need to understand who your customer is so that your marketing message connects. Now, why is this really important? Well, like I say, target audiences are the people that you want your marketing message to connect, and when it doesn't connect, it is a bit like talking to a teenager. You know, they're not interested. And like I said, I was talking to my 10-year-old this morning. She doesn't want to hear me lecturing. You know, there's no interest. And when there's no interest, you know, people generally don't listen. You know, it's said that we see, well, I have seen some crazy stats, but certainly that we see hundreds of adverts a day, don't we? Possibly thousands. There was a stat saying about 10,000. That seems particularly high. But we end up almost blocking them out because most of them aren't relevant. And I often say, you know, almost with emails, I don't want any more emails, but I'm quite happy to receive me mails, an email that's actually beneficial to me, gives me some information that I want. So, you know, when people don't listen and they block out things that they're not interested with. And another example, I want to give you, Metallica, you know, they're a huge band, sell out stadiums. But let's be honest, if they were playing at this couple's wedding, and I might be wrong, they might be quite into thrash metal and heavy metal, but I'm guessing it's probably going to clear the dance floor. It doesn't mean they're a bad band. It's just not to the right audience for what they offer. So how do we start to look at who our target audience is and understanding them? Because it's really key to understand your audience almost better than they do. So we start to segmentate people and we start to build up personas around them. Now, one thing that you know, I like to do is start with problems. Yeah, always think about the problem you solve for someone and then think about the after that they get. So who has that problem and why do they need a solution? And it's very easy to get caught up in thinking, you know, almost like your audience is the same. But, you know, if I took, say, a plumber who does maybe boiler breakdowns or boiler servicing, you know, you'd think, okay, the audience is anyone who's got a boiler. But actually break that down further, because within those homes where there's a boiler, well, some are owned by people, you know, that a homeowner needs a different message from, say, a landlord. You know, the homeowner might be really concerned about, actually, can you get here really quickly? It's all done neat and tidy. The landlord's probably slightly more concerned with the cost aspect and, you know, have you got the bits of paperwork afterwards, you know, so that I can rent my property out because it's had its yearly check. So even if the service you offer, you know, break it down. I always like to start with problems before I move on to demographics. And we're going to talk about demographics now, because lots of people say build up those personas. And, you know, I think it is great to build up personas around people, but I think you've got to start with problems first of all. And the reason I say this is if I said, you know, someone over 60, they have a few quid and they live in a castle, well, I could be talking about King Charles, but I could also be talking about Ozzy Osbourne. You know, they both fit that demographic. So always start with the problem. When it comes to the demographics like age and things like that, this can be really helpful to where to place your marketing message. So as an example, you know, different people might have the same problem, but actually for the, you know, maybe under 25s, I might be looking to use TikTok and certainly Instagram. Actually, probably would have, yeah, probably wouldn't bother on Facebook. But then if I was people in 30 plus, then I'd probably go for Facebook and advertise on there, and probably less on Snapchat. TikTok actually is, yeah, it's got a wider demographic now, but it is still predominantly sort of under 40s. I'm 44. I'm quite an active TikTok user, but so not everyone fits into that, but it's worth understanding people's demographics, age, gender, income, education, just to sort of build up a picture around them. Then have a look at their behaviors. So what other brands and products do they buy? How do they like to shop? What's the experience they want? Different people like a different experience when shopping. I'm very much, like convenience, really. I just want to be able to click it online and it gets delivered. That is happy. Other people like to be in, to talk to someone. And that's fine. And understand this about each of your audiences. So if you go back to those, the audience you created from different problems, then write down each of these different parts for each person. And then certainly look at geographic, so location based. Have a look. Are you actually serving national, international, or are you serving a local audience? This is a big one I do when I review things like Google Ads. Quite often the location settings are wrong. The same with Facebook ads. I was looking up recently for a local podcast studio because I record a podcast, but I record it at my house here. And I was looking up podcast studios. Now I got shown an advert on Facebook, funnily enough, for a podcast studio. I looked, it was like in Bristol. And I was like, it was a great advert, but they clearly didn't really have their location set right. Maybe you could argue that perhaps I might be traveling up that way and needed to book one. But no, I was looking for one sort of within sort of a half-hour drive of my house near Hastings. So it wasn't a relevant advert for me, yet they had paid, obviously, to, they'd got their audience right from the fact of I was someone looking for a podcast studio, but they didn't get the location-based targeting. So understand as much about your customer as you can. And it's not just really helpful for you, but it's really helpful for if you were to pass your marketing to someone else. If you can say, this is the sort of person that I want to go for. This is what they look like. This is how they like to buy. This is the tone of voice. I did a presentation. I think the one a couple of weeks ago was, I covered tone of voice quite a lot. It's always a good idea to listen to your audience. How do they speak? What words do they use? And then try and mirror that as much as possible, because we like to buy from people who, we feel understand us. So always try and sort of mimic the tone of voice that they use, and then use it consistently. So how do you start to find, who those what the demographics are of your ideal customer? Well, the first one is just speak to your existing customers, and not necessarily every existing customer, but the ones where you felt, that was a really good experience, as in we were able to solve their problem. They were really happy. They were a good fit for us. Because I've found that there's different industries I work with, and some are just a better fit. It just seems to flow better. So I sort of think, well, actually, that's the sort of person I want to target. So then speak to them, ask them about, why did you choose us? What did you like about the service we offered? And the big one, what can we do better? We're often scared to almost ask that, and actually we're often too polite to maybe even give the feedback. We're moan to everyone else about it, but we won't tell the business owner. Whereas I think as business owners, we need to get into almost saying, if there was one thing I could improve, what would it be? And just trying to get that feedback, because feedback is absolutely essential. You can then start to look at any data that you've got. If you've got things like Google Analytics or social media, look at who's engaging with your posts. You can probably discount your best friend and your mum from there, but look at who are people who do sort of interact with you, and you can start to see, okay, they're the people that like my product and service, and then build up a picture around them. But what you might be thinking is, what if I want to target a different audience? Because it might be that actually you've been in business a amount of time and you serve a certain audience, but actually you want to expand out. Well, how do you market to a different audience? Well, I'm going to introduce you to our electrician friend, and he's building a website, and he wants to attract large-scale commercial electrical installations. Bearing in mind, I'm not an electrician here, so don't tear it apart if I get some of this slightly wrong, but you'll get the premise. If his current website is using imagery like this, he just doesn't look like he's big enough to take on those commercial jobs, does he? Clients will not take him seriously. And I appreciate that's a different person in the photo. It's always tricky when finding stock photos. However, if the imagery was a little bit more like this, then you think, okay, yeah, he's big enough. And then you start to target the message around the audience that you want. So if on your website it says, say, like, need a quick fix or small electrical job done right, changing plugs, new lights, handling those pesky little electrical issues around the home, we're here to help. And a picture of a plug, you might think, okay, that's great. That fits. The imagery matches the message. And that's really key in your marketing, to ensure every touch point matches the message that you want. And if you haven't watched it, the first one of the first presentations I did on this was consistency in your brand. And that's about making sure what you say, what you visually put out, all your visuals, every touch point someone has with you is consistent to the message and the audience that you want to appeal to. Like, say, if you were going for the more sort of commercial jobs, looking for a trusted partner in your next commercial electrical project, full-scale rewires, complex installations, you're using a slightly different tone of voice, but you're speaking to a different person and you've got imagery that matches it. You need to make sure that actually every part of this matches up so that it speaks to the right audience, and the right audience being your ideal customer. So the reason we're doing this is actually to improve the conversions from our marketing. If you're spending anything on marketing, and in fact, even if you're doing your marketing yourself, you're spending, because you're spending time doing it. And actually, I'd argue that time is a more valuable asset than the money. I regularly say that, you can always get more money, but you can never get more time. And I know that's a very simplistic view. And I'm not saying it's easy just to keep getting more and more money, but in theory, it's there. Time, none of us can get more of it. Once it's gone, it's gone. So how do we improve the conversions? Well, the first thing your marketing message to audience needs to say is that you can solve the problem that they have. Yep. We go back to that boiler thing. We fix boilers in 24 hours in the London area. Okay. Someone looking for a breakdown, or they've got a breakdown, they're looking for someone to fix their boiler, and they live in London. That message says, yep, we can do it. So first of all, say that you can solve their problem. Then put up some sort of case study to prove it. Yeah, it's really, really good that you can say, actually, I know we're saying we can do it. Here's proof we can do it, here's a case study showing a bit of the work that we completed. And then most importantly, add some reviews or put some feedback from them. In fact, that was a great way. Those last 3 slides, that's how I often like to position case studies in their whole of, what was the problem? This is how, the problem someone had, we solved it. Here's a bit of proof that we solved it, and here's the review at the end. I sort of think, if someone was to land on your website looking for a solution to whatever problem that they have, and bearing in mind, all of us just provide solutions to problems. We only ever really buy anything or part with money to solve something or scratch an itch that we've got. If the company says, yes, we can do it, here's proof that we can do it. And then once we've done it for that person, they said, oh, it was brilliant, really enjoyed the service, or delivery was fantastic, or they tied it up afterwards, or it was really helpful, whatever it is. If you can put all of those three bits together, then, you're much more likely to convert that sort of prospect into a customer. So the checklist that I think everyone should follow on this is work out who has the problem that you solve, understand their demographics so that you know where to put the marketing message, in what tone of voice, and what sort of visuals they like to see. Set up your marketing to speak to them. I did sort of cover that just then, but yeah, make sure that it speaks directly to them. If you've got this problem, we can solve it. Be like the A-team, and then win the work. And that's what the aim of any marketing, any growing a business or growing a brand is all about. So that's all I've got for you this morning on audiences. Hopefully you found some of that interesting and helpful.